Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. This is another day God has given us. We praise Him and thank Him so much. Here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at Harvard University, I am so excited once again on this TJK, one-on-one with TJK. It's a place where we have promised you to bring you transformational people doing transformational work. But these are ordinary people doing extraordinary things in this world. And this morning, I am excited and happy to bring my brother from all the way from Uganda, but he's also here in the United States doing a fellowship at Cornell University. So while he's in the United States, we made a deal. We will do this conversation and get it to you. As you all know, I was born and raised in southwestern Uganda. This channel brings you people from all over the world. So now we are going to go all the way from southwestern Uganda and go to northern Uganda and see what my brother here is doing and what you can learn from him. We are here to learn and relearn. Welcome, my brother Ojok, to TJK Shares. Please greet our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Mr. Twesige. It's quite a delight and an honor to be hosted on this platform. When you were just talking about, southeast or southwestern Uganda and northeastern Uganda, where I come from, it's like a diagonal, right? It's on the edges. It's on the edges of the country from one end, to another. But it's quite enjoyable. It's quite delightful. It's quite insightful to always to have a conversation with you, because it's not the first time. And I really do learn a lot from you and look up to you as a mentor. So thank you. Thanks for having me. So my name is Ojok Okello. I am the founder and CEO of Okere Community Development Project, also known as Okere City, which is a small project in one village of northern Uganda in the district of Otuke. Otuke is in Lango sub-region. So the village has about 5,000 people. And in this small village of about 10 square miles, we are implementing multiple sustainable development projects, up to about 50 of them, being done in a very cohesive, being done in a very simultaneous, being done in a very intensive way, with the ultimate objective to create perhaps one of the most sustainable rural cities in Africa. Now, we call it a rural city because our work is significantly premised by the idea of rural futurism. Working to create a sustainable rural future is premised on the belief and the conviction that rural areas can no longer just be recipients of innovation, cannot just be recipient of ideas that can transform communities, and that rural areas, in fact, have a role to play in the construction of a future that is more progressive and that is more sustainable. And we do this because indeed we believe that in the sub-Saharan African context, many people still are based out of rural areas. But we've seen the trends. We've seen people moving around away from the villages to the rural, to the cities and the small towns, because there are no opportunities in the rural areas. And if we do not do something to curb this massive rural urban migration, then the cities in Africa, as we know them, are not prepared, are not equipped to handle you know, this kind of massive influx of people that are coming to them in terms of infrastructure, in terms of services, but also in terms of mindset. But what if we could invest in rural areas and we make sure that people get access to opportunities where they are? So these are basically some of the broad and overarching themes why we do the work that we do at Okere City.
Yes, thank you, Ojok. One thing I would like our listeners to pay attention to, your name is Ojok Okello. The city is Okere.
Okere, yes,
Yeah,
Okere.
I know somebody's going to listen to this, my brother, and will say, oh my goodness, Ojok just named the entire village after himself and called it Okere City. So
Okere is the name of the village.
Exactly.
And it means a baby for those who, so a toddler. Yeah, a little baby. Yes.
Okere means a little baby. I have promised you many times I want to come to Okere City, and that promise still stands. We will make it happen. Schedules have not aligned, but I know that Alan of Njuba, whose board I chair actually, has been there, and he gave me a fascinating report. So you are doing this work and created the whole city, and you've just done an overarching summary of what you do there. But I'm wondering, and our listeners always wonder, how was your upbringing? What led you to this journey? Tell us a little bit about your parents, about your siblings, and so we can start piecing these things together. The reason I ask that question is many people look at Okere City and look at the founder and CEO Ojok and go, this man was created from heaven and dropped here to do this. I would like people to understand that this is an ordinary journey. So talk about it. Where were you born and raised? And,
yes.
Who was the mentor or that clique that helped you choose this journey rather than choose to go work at a law firm in New York?
Thank you. So let's go back.
Yes.
37 years ago when I was born. So I was born in Kampala, you know, the capital of Uganda, in June 1986. That was just 6 months after the after the NRA, the National Resistance Army, you know, had captured Kampala, and President Museveni had become the leader of the country. But then
and he's still the leader today for those of you who live outside Uganda. So
I am as old.
Example.
I am as old as a regime. That is quite funny, actually. But here we are. So but the process of the establishment of this regime was tainted with conflict. It wasn't smooth, and very many lives were lost in the process. And so in January of 1987, when the NRA was celebrating its first anniversary, my father was murdered in cold blood. And yes, you know, maybe what has helped is that I don't have any memories, and my mother don't have any pictures. So I do not have any memories at all. Only my brother. I have an elder brother and a sister who tells me a few things, and my mother sometimes, but that is basically it. But because my mother was a housewife and she had not gone to school, she couldn't read and write. When her husband died, my father was a public servant. He was one of the managers at Uganda Foods and Beverages. Then
Yeah.
I only hear about it as now a defunct state parastatal. So my mother had to, when they went for burial to Okere, they found another conflict there being mounted by the Karimojong cattle rustlers.
Yes.
Right. So she tells me instances where the coffin was basically just dropped into the hole into the ground and quickly, buried because people had to run back because of conflict. But then she didn't go to Kampala after the burial of her husband. She went to Lira town, which is a town about 75 kilometers from Okere. So, and this is where basically my childhood begins.
Okay.
Right? So I was mostly raised from this small town of Lira, and I never went back to my mother and my siblings. We never went back to Okere, not just until about 6 years ago. But we didn't go back because of multiple reasons. One is that my mother remarried, so I now had another father in the picture, but also at this time, Okere was engulfed in another conflict, which is the Lord's Resistance Army or the Conj rebel activities. So Okere was, highly destabilized, and people had to run away from the village, and most of them became camped at the internally displaced people settlements or camps, which were mostly in small towns like Lira. Now, my idea of community was at my mother's home in Lira. Now, my mother, when her husband died, she came to Lira. She even stayed for up to about maybe 5 to 10 years without getting married. But by the time a man was coming in the picture, she had worked so hard, selling food by the roadside, doing very petty business, in this small town. And she had quite a sharp business acumen that she was actually able to make a good life for herself. And so as a little child, I don't remember struggling for basics. But of course, also basics within the confines of very limited resources. So I don't remember lacking or not having anything that I needed to have a good childhood, because the neighborhood was good, although it was a slum, but still we had a lot of fun as little children.
As children, yes.
Yeah, but then what happened is that our home at the height of the LRA conflict also housed several internally displaced people, up to about 300 people.
Oh my
right?
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and so this was in our compound. So that means that, because again, my mother couldn't serve us milk or have, live a life of grandiosity when we were surrounded by, people who are fleeing or running away from conflict. So it was very deliberate that we live like everybody else. So in our compound, WF, World Food Program, UNHCR, and all these humanitarian agencies would come and bring humanitarian assistance, aid. And I remember vividly that I constructed my mind at that a young childhood that I want to be like these people. Like when I grow up, I want to be like these people who come to our aid, who come to give us medical supplies and or food when we needed them. And so as I went to school, you know, this is what I knew I wanted to be. You know, somebody, you know, who provides hope, who provides a service, who provides a path to people who do not know what to do. And it was only later that I would learn that this is actually called humanitarian service. And around high school in Uganda, you know, when I had one of my aunts who was doing a development economics degree, I could read her notes, you know, and I got so interested in this field of development work, development economics, so much so that, you know, when time came for me to come to Okere University, it was so clear that I would only take an academic discipline that trains and enables me to become somebody who works in the service of humanity.
Wow. So that is the influence. Kudos to your mom.
Yes.
And your mom is still alive today?
Yes. My mom is still alive. She still lives and works in Lira town, running the same business that she ran when I was a little child. So when she sold food stuff, you know, cooked food by the roadside, she started selling grains at the market, the main market in Lira. The market was, of course, demolished and a big one built, you know, with an African Development Bank grant. And she left and then she came back. So now she runs a big grains store in this market. Yeah, she has always been a pillar. She still continues to be a pillar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Mama might not read or write English. And the word for thank you in your local language, what is that word?
It's apwoyo.
Apwoyo. Okay, here for you. This is for your mom now.
Yes.
Mama apwoyo, thank you, wevale tukwebaza nnyo for taking care of this young man, for taking care of the brother and the sister. And because of your love and dedication, here we are. We have the whole city in Okere village, which is now has turned the development into the map. Your son is continuing to work so hard, and if he doesn't say it as much, opoye, opoye, opoye. That's for Mama. Make sure she gets to see this herself when we post this conversation.
Yes.
That is a journey, and so sorry for the loss of your father, and opoye to your brother. Thank you, and your sister, who have also continued to be pillars in your life. You cannot do this work by yourself. The reason I always ask this question to our guests is so people can see these connections. I've been a CNN hero. I've done interviews on BBC all over the world. And sometimes people just ask you what you do, how you do it, the strategies, but forget to go deeper to the things that shaped you to become who you are. By even answering this question, you've gone from the conversation we're going to have in steps to now that you are running this organization, now that you're doing development, talk about the challenges you face. And when I ask you this, I know I run an organization in rural areas of Uganda. You run this organization northeastern rural areas of Uganda. Highlight some of the challenges and how you maintain that balance of working so far away while you are so far away. Even when you're in Kampala, Okere City is way away from where you are. What are the challenges you are facing, and how are you overcoming some of those challenges?
Yeah, let me provide a little context and caveat. So the work we are trying to do is very radical. It's very novice. It's very new. So I go back to the village, to Okere, just 6 years ago. And remember, I had not been to this village. the people in this village don't know me. I don't know them. And the only few things that my mother tells me about this village is that, it was very deep. She remembers how they had to run away, just dropping her husband's casket into the burial
Yes.
ground. So she doesn't have a very positive um, uh, idea or positive stories about this
Yes.
village. So I even grew up with this perspective. No, after all, when my father died, the clansmen wanted one of my uncles to remarry her.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But then she refuses. And so it seems like the people in the village also didn't like her. So, but you see, I now as a grown man myself in my 30s, I was about 31 years old. I basically don't have a home. You and I know that having a home in Kampala or in Lira is for for an African man, it's not home enough, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Has to
like
be in
your
your
roots.
village.
Yeah,
Yes.
your roots, your ancestry, this is where we call home. And so, and I have children of my own, and the children sometimes, my eldest son then, says, Dad, uh, let's are we going to the village this Christmas? And all these things. And so,
Yes.
and these very innocent questions, but also then compounded on questions about myself, about my identity, about who am I, where do I belong? So it's just trying to find answers to these questions that, one day, and my brother had been, saying, man, we need to go to the village. And the clansmen are actually demanding that at least we go and they see us because they've never seen us. So when I went for the first time, it was a dry land, a bush, nothing to talk about, rickety grass type houses, old rusted iron sheets, here and there. And I went from one uncle to another, one auntie to another, one cousin to another, and there was just this instantaneous feeling of this is where I belong. And even if I didn't know these people, and after that journey, it just made it so easy for me to agree with my brother that let's just go and build a grass thatched hut for ourselves so that whenever we move from Kampala or from Lira holiday, we have a roof over our head. This was the basic idea. So because of this, a few moments later, identifying the need and also using with my expertise, with my experience, and with my networks, I, get into the community, talk to them. I see children playing around during school time and they're not going to school. And I try to find out why is this the case? And then the answer is that there is no school. A woman died when she was giving birth. And I mean, it was a very simple, it wasn't a very complicated maternal problem, but then she died. And to me, these are just very basic things that couldn't happen anymore in this day and age. So we agreed then that we would start up a school to help children come to school, that we would start up a small health facility, that we shall start up village savings and lending activities. But then when we are thinking about doing this, I tell people that, so how do we call our initiative? Then people had very many names and very many ideas. Then I tell them, I think we could actually build a city here. Uh, uh, and then they
Yes.
laughed it off. And then are you crazy? How is this possible? This is nothing. Then I told them at one time, Lira City, which is our small town, was a village.
Was a village, yes.
Yeah, and for many of us, we were in the camps, right? So many of them had at least gone to Lira because they were in camp there. So I told them, you see, when we were internally displaced in Lira town, we know that it was very underdeveloped. And then they said yes. But I told them, and if you went to the town now, very many things have changed. Just in the time that you have come back to you, like in less than 10 years, a lot has changed. So why can't we do this here? You know, so it was just asking these provocative questions, making them understand that this is possible. Yeah, of course, you know, it wasn't an idea that became embraced so quickly. But then when we started doing one activity and it kept yielding results, it kept birthing other activities organically. People started believing in the idea. So I guess the long story that I wanted to convey is that the biggest challenge was making sure that people buy into this vision, and that, you know, they welcome it, that they embrace it, and that they work towards it. Whilst it was beginning at first, it has now caught up like wildfire. I mean, even now, if you went to Lira, the small city, you know, where most of us know, and you, for instance, tell a border guy, borders, you know, motorcycle, public transport services, and you tell them that I want to go to Okere City, they will take you right to Okere City. So Okere City has now become a landmark. We might not be a pub, like a government and listed city. We might not be as part of the Uganda, you know, urban development structures, but at least as an idea, you know, in the minds of our people, we are indeed a city because we provide products, we provide services, we provide opportunities that people used to only get when they went to the small city or when they went to Kampala. And now we are able to provide this. But not only that, work with them in this process in a very participatory manner. Now, it's not easy. You don't enlist the support of everybody in the village. One of the challenges, for instance, is that why is Ojok doing this? What is he interested in? Because somebody cannot just, you know, invest his heart, his soul, his money, a lot of it over the years into something that it doesn't expect to directly benefit from. So does he have interest to become a politician, for instance? And the politicians do not like me for this, because then they see me as a threat. If I invite my area MP, you know, for an activity, he has never showed up. But I hear from afar that, you know, it doesn't say the nicest things about me, for instance. But really, for me, that's, I don't care about that because it's not in my interest. Even if the reason I started and work on this project is very selfish. It's very selfish because I get the opportunity to utilize my skills and expertise as a development expert, right? So for me, it's, you know, when a painter gets a canvas, gets paint, you know, and, you know, they don't care how much time it takes for them to paint, provided they know that the outcome is going to be a prolific piece of art. For me, this is so, and when the painter is doing this, he's letting out his emotions, he's letting out his heart, he's letting out his knowledge, his skills into this painting. And that is selfish. for the artist
Yes.
because he derives satisfaction
But
from
the
it.
painter also, my brother, the painter knows the final product in his head.
Yes.
The
yes.
people who are watching him do it don't see the final product. I am so glad you made that point, and especially one related to when you do this, start doing this work, what other people perceive it to be.
Yeah.
22 years into this work, people in my village still think, some people, that I have an interest in a political office, that I want to run against Chris Vadiomonsi, our area MP, who I know very well, and I've told him himself, I don't have any political ambition. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't show up on our functions just like yours, because in his mind he thinks I'm going to stand. And if I stood, definitely I would vote him. But
Yeah.
I don't have an interest in a political office. So I'm glad you said this. Yesterday I was doing spaces, and somebody said, will you go and look for money, and the type of work you do is mostly done by Bazungu. And the reason I'm also very much interested in locally grown indigenous founders and CEO is to try to demystify that notion that for somebody to do development, which you touched on, I'm sure when World Food Program came, you had all these Bazungu from all over the world who are volunteering their time to come and serve our people. The concept in our people's minds has become Bazungu make a difference in our communities. So, ladies and gentlemen, here are two CEOs, two founders, one from Northeastern Uganda, one from Southwestern Uganda. If we can do this, you can do it too.
Yeah,
and so
we can do
thank
it.
you. Yeah, thank you for doing that and creating this city and having a vision of what you want to accomplish. Talk a little bit how you have integrated technology. And when you are talking about this integration of technology, people need to understand also that the cultural context of where we work plays a big role. The local people are the stakeholders. You have the elders in your community. You have all these people who have gone through traumatic experiences during Konye Wars, internally displaced, maiming and killing of people. People can go back and look at Konye 2012, which is a documentary that was done by young people out of California, San Diego, yes. And though this, the documentary they made so much sense, that organization is not here anymore, but the work they did is still here. And I'm sure some of the listeners will agree with us. So when you are bringing technology combined with the local leaders who might not embrace technology, talk about those innovations and how it is working in this Okere City coming up.
Yeah, thank you. So when we started Okere City in 2019, there was no basic internet infrastructure. Yes. So every day I had to ride a motorbike to Otuke Town Council, which is our small town, every day. It's about 20 kilometers. So I actually requested a local restaurant, very local roadside restaurant lady, to always allow me to use this corner in a restaurant, which I utilized as my office because we didn't have internet in the village. And for 1 year, I did this, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult because sometimes it could rain so much and the road is very bad. I used to take a lot of time, just 1.5 hours on the road every day, and also fuel costs. And it wasn't just making sense. So I wrote to MTN and to Airtel, explaining to them the MTN and Airtel are telco, service providers in Uganda, requesting them, if there was anything that could be done. And they just told me we will look at it and see. And in the next year, internet services significantly improved. And I don't know what they did, because they didn't construct any new booster or anything. But then later I inquired, and they said actually the booster that they had, they hadn't just improved its digital functionality. So it was something they could easily fix the problem, right?
Yes.
And now we have a super fast internet in Okere. Actually, my internet in Okere is quite fast. Is faster than my internet when I come to Kampala. One, I think, of course, because of traffic. There are fewer people using it in the village. But that significantly improved our offerings, and one of it is agricultural digital service provision. So there is this website, and it's free. It's called Access to Agriculture. Access to Agriculture does YouTube videos of small and basic and of ways of improving basic or rudimentary farming services or products or outputs. And they do this with, so they have one video in English, and then they will get other languages, other people who speak other languages around the continent to translate these videos, right? So they have very many videos in Luo, for instance. So Luo, basically somebody who speaks Choli, Lango, Alur, can understand. They have videos in Runyankole, for instance. They have content in Luganda. So we basically went to this YouTube channel and downloaded all these videos, and we grow Simsim a lot. We grow groundnuts as well. But the productivity has always been very poor. So what we basically, because I am not an agronomist myself, is basically see the video, watch it, and see if it makes sense. And then we have a big screen in our community hall, a 40-inch screen. And basically we have community days every Saturday. And before we go out to start drinking our local beer or dancing in the evening, in the morning, we utilize it to learn, right? And the learning is not somebody organizing a workshop, it is playing this video and letting them see that, okay, instead of just broadcasting Simsim, which wastes seed, and the Simsim is very expensive now, there is actually, a better way of planting them in rows, and better ways of harvesting. And this is being done by some rural community in Ivory Coast. This is how they do it, for instance, and this is how it has significantly improved the agricultural productivity. So, and this is an opportunity that was offered, to us because of digital
digitization,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, but of course, ultimately, like most rural Africa, before we even talk about, the fourth industrial revolution, before we talk about robotics, before we talk about artificial intelligence, we need the basics, right? Basic literacy, for instance, learning how to read and write, and how to understand basic numeracy, right? And so literacy and numeracy. So we also run a functional adult literacy class, and which significantly helps. But for the youth, we also have a digital lab where we conduct very basic training on digital literacy. Like, for instance, how do you connect and power a computer? How do you type? How do you access the internet? Very basic. So we have like 5 computers, and every day there are like some 10 young people in the village who come to this lab, and they are learning how to use these very basic applications, very basic computer scaling and knowledge acquisition programs. So these are some of the things we do in as far as digital technology development is concerned in the village. But also in terms of course, applied technology like value addition, we are utilizing very basic appropriate technologies to help reduce the intensity and the laborious work that is involved in shea butter production, because we work with the rural women in the village to collect shea nuts and to add value to the shea butter, which we sell as one of our economic development activities.
There's no market. These corporations have no use for you.
Yes, yes.
So again, to the people who are listening, whether you are in Sierra Leone or you are in Russia, value added. You added value, and all of a sudden, services are there.
Yeah.
The same way when I started in Yaka, in my village, I keep going to the village. We need to go to make it a city. Also, it has grown from a village to the city. For us, we stayed with the village thing. But once we built a hospital there, built a school, employed all these people, all of a sudden, internet is working.
Yeah, yeah.
That was not there. All of a sudden, the government came and paved the road.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now our local people are building houses around who didn't want to even visit for Christmas. So by you go and planting that hut, you and your brother, you open doors for others to come in. Yesterday, I also said that majority of the people in this world are followers. They are looking for a leader to follow. And there you are, the youngest in the family. I'm the youngest in my family. Yeah. Everyone has a calling. Not everyone can go around starting cities, organizations, but you followed your calling. I followed mine, and that support system will get us to the next level. So since we are coming closer to the end of our conversation, just list the different activities Okere City has done. And then when you are done listing them, just one by one, because we put the website and contacts to go visit, give advice to somebody who watches us today and say, I want to be like Ojok. I want to be like Jackson. I have a village in my area that is suffering and I would like to create something there. After you list what Okere City does, give that person an advice on how they can get started. Simple. That way, 1 year from now, we can go back and say, my man, we did it. And as a result, there are seeds now that have been planted in Karamoja, in Sudan, in Rwanda, or in Nicaragua, or India.
Yes.
Let's plant seeds.
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned initially that we, provide this ecosystem of multiple businesses, social businesses. One is that because we understand that charity is good, but we know that it might not be the most sustainable. It might not, you have to work towards self-reliance at what cost. And so this is what we do. And through this, we Okere village or Otuke district is located on a belt, a shea belt. The shea trees naturally grow in Otuke, and it's on that belt. And so we harvest shea nuts. And as I mentioned, we add value to these shea nuts. And, we work with a collective of 200 women who are in a shea butter cooperative society. And we have seen, little improvement in their household incomes. When we started, most of them were living way below $1 a day. And now, we try to measure and track our progress. And at least for this, for 80% of these 200 households, at least by the end of last year, most of them had were living on household incomes of at least $2 per day. Small progress, but it makes a lot of sense. The other activities that we also run is a functional adult literacy class, again with 150 women. Most of them are 40 years old plus, and this helps with basic numeracy and literacy. We also have a school, early childhood development center, as well as a primary school that has a combined total of 300 children when we had our holiday this year. And our first class, candidate class, P7 class sat, there were 17, children. And we hope that when the results come out, they shall perform well. And we also have a local restaurant, that provides authentic dishes and cuisines. We also have a grocery store in the village. We also have a health center that on a daily basis provides treatment up to about 50 community members. And we invest a lot in cultural productions and sporting activities as well. So we have a football club, we have a boxing and kickboxing club. We invest in community theatrical production. For instance, recently we just produced a play at the National Theatre in Kampala, about the conflicts and the contrast between village life and city life, or African cultures vis-a-vis Western influence, right? So basically what we do is provide this space in the village, and also which acts as a market. So every Saturday, like today, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people descend into this space just to socially engage, to network, but also to bring their share nuts, or bring their sim or sesame or groundnuts and cassava and sell and disconnect. And it has really helped to facilitate stronger bonds, but also cultural development within the village. And we also do community tourism activities. So we welcome visitors from Kampala, Leira town, or any other place. And every month we have at least about 50 people who visit Okere just to come and learn, to come and see what we are doing, which then ties into what my hope, my wish for the project is, and that everyone can learn from. So what we are ultimately hoping to do is that we create a model for transformative rural development that can offer a learning template for other people and for other projects within the African continent and beyond. We know that African villages could be different, either culturally, socially, politically, or whatever, even environmentally. But we know that there are fundamental basics that stay the same. How do you engage the community? How do you make sure that they participate in the construction of the future that they desire and that it's good for them? How do you make sure that their voices and their perspectives and their vision for the future is integrated in this bold ambition? And these are some of the things that we try to do, because at the end of the day, we do not want to just replicate cities like we know them in Africa. Like, we do not just want to replicate Kampala or Nairobi or Leira or Mbarara, where people just come without getting strongly rooted in the vision and in the future that they want to construct. How do we create this vision and make sure that people are constructive participants in the process? And you could be wondering, well, you do not have, degrees from either London School of Economics, where I went, or Makerere, or you didn't study economics, you didn't study development theories, you didn't study community development, but you see, you could be a teacher. You could contribute towards improving educational outcomes in your village. You could be a nurse or a doctor. You can contribute with your skills, knowledge, and money to improve health outcomes. So, and this is what I'm doing. I'm basically using my passion, my love, my knowledge, my skills, my networks to be helpful to my community. And in the very basic way, this is what I thought made sense then, and I still think it makes absolute sense now and even in the future.
Wonderful. If somebody wanted to start right now, you've already answered it. Don't wait. You don't need a special education, special talent. Just go get started. If somebody asked you, this is the one of the last things I ask every guest who I have hosted. If you had to give advice to your younger self, you are still a young man, 37. But if you are going to give yourself advice at 18 to 21, what would that be?
I would be so proud with myself, because professionally, at least, because I think I'm doing things that I envisioned to do at around that time. That was when I was joining the university. So I would be so proud to my younger self, for making this bold decision, for investing my life in the service or in the vocation of improving humanity. But personally, of course, I would, tell my younger self to be more emotionally intelligent, to build stronger bonds of social relations and connections. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is the larger community matter, and they're important. But what really matters significantly is family, is your spouse or spouses, your children, your parents, your siblings, and working to strengthen these bonds is very important. And I would tell my younger self, to have worked harder and harder and harder to make sure that these bonds were strengthened.
Well said. Thank you so much, Ojok, for sparing time to share. Please provide us all details. We will include them in this interview. And we encourage more people to watch, to share, and more people to come and visit Okere City. Thank you for the work you do. Continue to do it so well. Have great time at Cornell University, and the best is yet to come.
Thank you, Jackson, for welcoming me and for this wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it. And everybody, I'll see you in Okere, anytime, and I can't wait. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.